There exists a universal, deeply frustrating language spoken by struggling basketball coaches and anxious sports executives across the world. It is a language of bureaucratic deflection, a language built entirely on hollow buzzwords, political correctness, and carefully crafted PR spin, designed specifically to insult the intelligence of the fan base. When a coaching staff commits a glaring, undeniable tactical mistake on a global stage, they will never step up to the podium and admit fault. They will never look into the cameras and confess that their outdated philosophies were completely exposed. Instead, they attempt to gaslight the entire basketball community. They feed you a word salad of chemistry, rotations, and sample sizes in a desperate effort to justify the unjustifiable. If you want a masterclass in this particular brand of coaching cowardice, you need look no further than the official post-game press conference following the United States national team's 84-7 victory over Spain in the FIBA World Cup qualifying championship game. The title of this breakdown says it all. Interim head coach Nate Tibbetts took the podium and delivered a series of excuses for benching Caitlin Clark that border on professional embarrassment. Today, we are going to conduct a ruthless, microscopic translation of that press conference. We will strip away the coach speak. We will analyze the raw tactical reality of the Spanish defense, and we will expose exactly why the Team USA establishment is currently paralyzed by its own internal politics. Let us set the stage for the scene of the crime. Just 48 hours prior to this championship game, the Team USA coaching staff finally surrendered to logic. They placed Caitlin Clark in the starting lineup against New Zealand. The result was a 55-point margin of victory, a flawless, terrifying display of offensive velocity. Clark shot 100% from inside the arc, dictated the pace, and generated a staggering plus 24 plus-minus rating. The formula was definitively proven. The ultimate starting lineup had been unlocked. And yet, when the lights came on for the championship game against a highly sophisticated Spanish national team, the coaching staff panicked. They reverted to the old guard. They benched the most lethal offensive weapon on the planet. And the very second the game tipped off, the consequences of that cowardly decision became immediately apparent. Listen to Nate Tibbetts' own words as he describes the opening stretches of the game.
This was our fifth game in I think 7 days, just like everybody else. They had a disappointing loss last game, and they came out and set the tone. They played a bunch of zone against us. I thought as the game went on, we did a better job with the zone, but give them credit and then also give...
I want every single basketball fan watching this to pause and truly internalize what the interim head coach just admitted. Spain came out and played a zone defense. In the world of international basketball, a zone defense is used for one very specific reason. A team resorts to a zone when they know they cannot match up with you athletically in man-to-man coverage. They pack the paint, they clog the driving lanes, they build a literal wall around the basket, and they dare you to beat them from the perimeter. They test your shooting discipline, and they test your floor spacing. If you are a head coach and you know your opponent is deploying a zone defense to pack the paint, what is the ultimate, undeniable mathematical counterattack? You put your greatest, deepest, most dangerous perimeter shooter on the floor. You deploy the player who possesses the kind of gravitational pull that can literally break the structural integrity of that zone. By benching Caitlin Clark against a zone defense, Nate Tibbetts committed an act of tactical malpractice. When you start traditional slashing wings and methodical, half-court point guards against a packed European zone, you are playing directly into the opponent's hands. The Spanish defense was completely comfortable in the first quarter because they did not have to respect the logo-range shooting threat. They sat in the paint, clogged the passing lanes, and turned the American offense into a slow, disjointed, grinding mess. Tibbetts admits that Spain set the tone. They only set the tone because the Team USA coaching staff voluntarily left their ultimate tone setter on the bench. It is the equivalent of leaving your umbrella at home during a hurricane just to see if your raincoat still works. It is pure, unfiltered stubbornness. But the true embarrassment of this press conference occurred when a reporter gave the coach an opportunity to praise the standout players of the tournament. The reporter practically begged Tibbetts to acknowledge the incredible, undeniable impact of the young superstars who had dominated the stat sheets. And instead of giving credit where credit was mathematically due, Tibbetts delivered an excuse that will go down in the annals of terrible coaching sound bites.
I don't think I was surprised or disappointed by anyone. I think everyone, they played like who they are, in my opinion. I think part of our challenge as a coaching staff is just looking at different lineups, and I think that's why you saw us change the units as the games went on. And I think as the competition gets better, as you start to move forward, that's why you need those sample sizes and things that you've looked at.
Sample sizes. He benched the tournament leader in total points and total assists in a championship game because he needed sample sizes. Let us completely dismantle the logic of that statement. You conduct experiments in training camp. You evaluate sample sizes during closed-door scrimmages. You do not treat the championship game of a FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament against the second-best team in your bracket like a middle school science fair project. Furthermore, what possible sample size did the coaching staff need that they did not already possess? They already had the sample size of the traditional, veteran-heavy starting lineup from the first 2 games, and it resulted in clunky, slow-paced, grinding basketball. They already had the sample size of Caitlin Clark running the offense as a starter against New Zealand, and it resulted in a 55-point, flawless blowout. The data had already been collected. The hypothesis had already been proven. When a coach uses the phrase sample size to justify benching a generational superstar, what he is really saying is this: we are terrified of disrupting the political hierarchy of this locker room. So, we will continue to shuffle the rotations to ensure all the veterans receive their guaranteed minutes, even if it actively damages our offensive efficiency. It is a bureaucratic smokescreen designed to hide a complete lack of leadership. And if you want further proof of this deeply rooted political hierarchy, you only need to listen to the comments made by veteran Kelsey Plum during that same press conference. Plum was asked about the integration of the young superstars, Clark, Paige Buchers, and Angel Reese. Her response was a masterclass in passive-aggressive, veteran-coded messaging.
Obviously, technically, they're young, but they played in a lot of big games and big stages before, so they're not afraid of this moment. I think Team USA, everyone, I think, did an incredible job of just figuring out how to pick their spots. Obviously, you want to be aggressive and be yourself. Coach talks about that, be yourself, but also be yourself within the team dynamic. And, it's all a learning process.
Be yourself within the team dynamic. Figure out how to pick your spots. Now, translate that into the reality of a basketball locker room. Pick your spots is the phrase established veterans use when they want a young superstar to defer to them. It means this: we know you can shoot from 30 feet. We know you can fire full-court transition passes, but we want you to slow the game down, hand the ball to the veterans, and stand in the corner until we decide it is your turn. You do not tell a player with the transcendent, galaxy brain court vision of Caitlin Clark to pick her spots. You do not tell a player who warps the entire geometry of an opposing defense to simply fit into a pre-existing team structure. You reshape the entire dynamic of your team to maximize her unique, unprecedented skill set. When you ask Caitlin Clark to conform to a slow, methodical, veteran-led half-court offense, you are completely neutralizing her value. The Team USA establishment views her as just one piece of the puzzle, when in reality, she is the entire picture. They want her to be a role player who occasionally knocks down a deep three, rather than the offensive engine who dictates the pace of the game. And Plum continued to reinforce this defensive, exclusionary narrative when asked about the veterans taking over the scoring in the tight moments against Spain. Kalia Copper finished with 20 points, and Plum added 18. The reporter asked about this veteran dominance, and Plum responded with the ultimate buzzword of the basketball establishment.
Ka, I remember, that gold medal game, Ka had a massive impact in winning that game, right? And she's someone that's not afraid of the moment. Same with Chelsea, same with Jack, Dearica. Obviously, we've won together, so there's a different level of chemistry. And, when we talk about chemistry, that's, I think, the biggest factor personally playing in these games, because a lot of these teams get an opportunity to practice with each other, play with each other year round, and we are kind of playing against each other, and then we kind of get put in a situation where it's high stakes, high pressure, and you really have to form that chemistry. So those moments where you can kind of reflect back to those behind the back passes that Chelsea makes and stuff, people are going to be in those certain times. It's just because we've had years of experience.
Chemistry. It is the ultimate crutch for a struggling system. Plum is claiming that the veterans closed the game because they have years of experience playing together. But let us examine the actual, mathematical reality of that chemistry against the Spanish zone defense. The veteran chemistry resulted in a stagnant, sloppy, highly vulnerable first half, where the United States was completely unable to pull away from the opponent. The veteran chemistry resulted in Kalia Copper having to play exhausting, heroic isolation basketball just to bail out the shot clock. You know what actually broke the Spanish defense? It was not veteran chemistry. It was the undeniable, relentless playmaking gravity of the 22-year-old point guard who was forced to come off the bench. If you look at the official box score from this 84-70 victory, Caitlin Clark played 22 minutes. She scored only 7 points. The establishment will look at that and say, see, she struggled. But the establishment conveniently ignores the other column on the stat sheet. She finished the game with 7 assists. She led the entire roster in playmaking, and she committed only 1 turnover. While the veterans relied on years of experience to hit heavily contested isolation jumpers, Caitlin Clark was systematically dissecting the Spanish zone defense with surgical precision. She was drawing double teams, manipulating defensive rotations with her eyes, and spoon-feeding her teammates wide-open layups and uncontested corner threes. The veterans scored the points, but Caitlin Clark engineered the offense. She generated the easy looks that veteran chemistry was completely failing to produce on its own. This post-game press conference is a microcosm of the broader war currently being fought for the soul of women's basketball. We are watching an established, deeply entrenched hierarchy that is absolutely terrified of the generational anomaly that has arrived on its doorstep. The coaching staff is afraid to hand her the keys because it would mean admitting that their traditional, slow-paced systems are obsolete. The veterans are hesitant to fully embrace her pace because it would mean surrendering their offensive dominance. So, they hide behind excuses. They talk about sample sizes and picking her spots. They bench her in championship games, then claim it was a necessary tactical experiment. But the excuses are running out. The FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament is over. The international exhibition season has concluded. The next time Caitlin Clark steps onto a professional basketball court, she will not be wearing a Team USA jersey, and she will not be subject to the political whims of an interim head coach trying to appease a veteran locker room. She will be wearing an Indiana Fever uniform. And when that highly anticipated, fiercely contested WNBA season finally tips off, there will be no more talk of sample sizes. There will be no more off-ball decoy assignments. She will be handed full, undisputed control of a professional franchise. The rest of the league, the veteran players who claim superior chemistry, and the coaches who believe they can scheme against her, are about to face a harsh, undeniable reality. When you unleash the ultimate offensive weapon, when you surround her with a system that actually encourages her transition pace and her logo range, the results will be catastrophic for the opposition. The Team USA coaching staff tried to silence her, and she still led the tournament in assists. Imagine what she's going to do when she is finally allowed to make some noise. Thank you for joining me in the film room today, as we cut through the bureaucratic nonsense and expose the real tactical truths of the sport.